Hey, this is Off the Cuff, and I'm Steve from TorahFamily.org. There's been many times when talking to someone who's just coming to Torah will ask, "What do I do now?" At first, it can seem overwhelming. However, it's actually really simple. When starting out, we make it hard on ourselves because our minds want to dwell on the misconceptions given to us over all the years that the Torah is too hard, when in reality, nothing could be farther from the truth. We can't forget, Moses said the Torah is not too difficult. He said it's not too difficult. So if it wasn't too difficult for them, then it's not too difficult for us. We also can't forget that we aren't the only ones who are new to this understanding. There were many, and I do mean many, converts in the New Testament. So, let's read what was given to those new converts when they began. Acts 15, starting in verse 19. "It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Instead, we should write to them, telling them to abstain from food polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from the meat of strangled animals, and from blood. For Moses has been preached in every city from the earliest times and is read in the synagogues on every Sabbath." The funny thing is, these verses are used by many to say the new Gentile believers don't have to pursue the Torah. However, those who say this never give these four instructions to new converts. Interestingly enough, they're all founded in the Torah. The first one is dealing with idol worship. The Torah instructs us not to do this by way of the second commandment. And idols were made to make sacrifices to, just as we see they did with the golden calf. The second one is also addressed in the Torah and was usually in conjunction with idol worship. This is seen in Numbers 25 when Israel fell. The third one is addressed in the Torah likewise. Strangled animals are killed without having their blood drained. The Torah instructs us to drain the blood from the animal. When a person slaughters an animal, they are to drain the blood. This is why we are also not to eat an animal that dies of itself, as given in Deuteronomy 14:21. An animal that dies on its own has not had its blood drained at the time of its death. And the fourth one is addressed in the Torah just the same. Some cultures would consume the blood of the animals. The Torah gives explicit instructions that we should not do this. So these were the instructions given to the new believers in the church found in the book of Acts. So, why aren't we seeing these instructions given to new believers in the church today? Isn't that supposed to be our goal? To be a New Testament church? Seriously. But again, these instructions to the new believers in Acts were all founded in the Torah. But it's verse 21 of these verses that just gets breezed over way too easily. It says, "For Moses has been preached in every city from the earliest times and is read in the synagogues on every Sabbath." Meaning what? Meaning the Torah is read every Sabbath. They can learn the rest as Yahweh leads them when they hear the Torah every Sabbath. So they could learn the rest. This was just a starting point for them. And again, these were all founded in the Torah. So when people ask me, "What do I do now?" I just tell them, start reading what Moses wrote and take it one day at a time. That's what the new believers in the New Testament started doing. And it's what Yeshua told his disciples to do as well. Apply what can be applied. When you come across something that can't be applied today, and I said when, not if, then you obviously can't do it, and you won't be held accountable to that which is not able to be done. For example, any and all laws that applied to the priesthood and the temple obviously can't be done today. I've heard many say that the destruction of the temple is proof that the law was done away with. Now, while that sounds good on the surface, there's nothing in the scriptures that says that. If that's the case, then the law was done away with when Babylon first destroyed the temple. So, was the law done away with then? Of course not. When Judah returned to the land, they did all they could to reestablish the temple services with the priesthood. But even then, they weren't able to reestablish everything. That's right. Even at that time, they weren't able to do everything in the Torah. Now that means that the New Testament believers weren't able to obey all of the Torah either. Not even Yeshua himself. Let me say that again. That means that not even the New Testament believers were able to obey all of the Torah. Not even Yeshua himself. Why? Because they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant. Without the Ark, the holiest day of all couldn't be obeyed as given in the Torah, that being the Day of Atonement. In fact, there are 3 feasts where the men are to appear before Yahweh. Well, where did the presence of Yahweh rest? His presence rested on top of the Ark of the Covenant. But the Ark wasn't there, so they obviously couldn't obey these commands. For more on this, please see our teachings titled The Unbreakable Laws and Pursuing Without the Ark. The New Testament believers pursued the Torah the best that they could, and the New Testament believers studied the Old Testament. Think of it this way. No one ever reads a novel from the middle to the end only to reference the beginning from time to time. If you want to really understand the back of the book, that being the New Testament, you have to really understand the front of the book, the Old Testament. So much can be taken out of context when we fill in voids with our own understanding. And remember, the New Testament believers didn't have a New Testament. They had the Old Testament. That's what they read and studied. Again, the New Testament believers didn't have a New Testament to read. They had the Old Testament. That's what they read and studied. Start at the front of the book. This is where the real journey is. Coming out of Egypt was the first step, but now is when you learn to get Egypt out of you. Much like in the way of how the Jews weren't able to do much of the Torah while living in captivity in Babylon, though they did all they could. There's really not much more one is able to do today from that what the average Christian already does. A small list of what we can do besides what is listed in Acts 15 would be keeping the Sabbath, keeping the dietary instructions, wearing tzitzit, remembering the feast days, and avoiding the pagan holidays. But don't be overwhelmed with studying the Torah. Seriously, think of it this way. A first grader isn't expected to pass the test for a senior. And that's why we read what we do in Acts 15 for the new believers. These were new people to Torah. They didn't know all the instructions. So the disciples gave them these basic instructions that, hey guys, start here, and you can start learning and growing every Sabbath after this. So take one step at a time. Sometimes we make things harder than what they should be, when in reality, they're much easier than that. Much easier. Just like Moses said, they really are easy, guys. We just need to learn them. Seek what you know and humbly grow. Don't try to force others to believe the current view that you hold to. And be cautious of those who try to force their view on you. They may very well have good intentions, but it doesn't make them right either. You can also visit our Faith Foundations page to help in learning the basics. Some might say, but Steve, what about the extra biblical books that so many say really are biblical, like Enoch, Jasher, and Jubilees? I've seen lots of debate on these books over the years. All I can say is, Yeshua told us to obey Moses. He didn't say to obey any other author. So, if one wants to refer you to these other books, that's up to you. However, when it comes right down to it, when starting out especially, I strongly suggest you keep to the writings of Moses, just as Yeshua commanded us. That being Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Remember, when Yeshua was being tempted, what did he quote? He quoted Deuteronomy, the Torah. Learn the book, learn what Moses gave us, the Torah. So start at the beginning and take one day at a time. Well, that's all I have. Think about it. Pray about it. But more than anything, be a doer of the word and not a hearer only. Until next time, Shalom.